Hey everybody, welcome to this week's episode of Making Sense of It All. I'm your host, Jesse Stakes, and this week, my guest is Nelson Bradshaw. Nelson is the Managing Director for Banking Strategies and a Wealth Advisor at Farther. Nelson's career in banking has spanned over 35 years, with most of that time spent managing wealth, private banking, and commercial groups. In the upcoming interview, you'll hear a little bit about his banking career, about Nelson's deep involvement in the Northeast Florida community, and about some of the organizations that he supports, including the tax slayer Gator Bowl. Enjoy the episode. Let's jump into it.
Farther is a financial technology company in the wealth management space, a registered investment advisory firm. So we're attracting financial advisors onto a new tech platform. You'll find that actually most financials systems are really 20, 30-year-old technology that's been updated. And at some point, it becomes very difficult to amend and innovate with it. And so the co-founders of Farther, two MIT grads, got together after working for two very large institutions and running into this problem to really set up a platform from scratch that actually sits right on top of the rails of the world's largest custodian. So your money's still very safe at some place. We use Pershing, Schwab, Fidelity, so there are no concerns there. But it allowed me, so we have financial advisors that come on, but then our technology is also good for your community banks out there that might want to offer those services, but they don't want to have to deal with the back end. So we're sort of their back end. And they have their sales force, and we'll do the white labels. So I spend some of my time on that, which is where the banking strategies piece comes from. And then additionally, I do have a personal book of business with Daniel Gillens, my business partner, in terms of managing funds and a traditional wealth management platform with a lot of emphasis on planning. So that's what Farther's about.
Well, and I know that that's not all you do, correct? You have your hands in quite a few things.
Yeah. Well, I like to tell folks, I've been running markets for a large international bank for the last 20 years, been a banker, commercial banker for 35 years. So the last few years, I have been overseeing commercial business banking, wealth, those areas as line of business. And but at my core, what I tell folks that I've always done for 35 years is service primarily closely held businesses, family businesses with revenues of $10 million and over, and help them with all things financially, whether it was corporately, whether it was with their employee base through 401k or personal planning through a private banking segment. But what I really wanted to do here, two things, as I transition from managing a large group, I wanted to go from managing portfolios and people to driving revenue and strategy. And so Farther has allowed me to do that in the wealth management space. I have another firm that I work with on the 401k space that's turnkey, best in class. And then in terms of a company's capital stack, what does their lending structure look like? How, bank financing, non-bank financing, equity, helping them with those decisions. And so I like to say that I used to do all those things under one bank name, one platform. And that bank might have done some things good, some things not so well. Now I get to sort of pick the best of the best in helping a sizable family business with all things financial.
That's nice because you truly get to be a consultant for your customer and help them advocate for them and what's in their best interest rather than advocating what's in the best interest for your bank, correct?
Right, exactly.
I'd be remiss if I didn't ask, how did you get started in banking? What inspired you to get into the industry?
Well, it was a part of my initial plan. I got an undergrad in finance at LSU. Was always interested in the financial markets and business ownership. I was actually given some stock by an uncle of mine who started a company who went on the New York Stock Exchange. So even at 10, 11 years old, I'd get out the newspaper and look and see what the value of the stock was back when you went to the paper to do that. So I had an interest there. But as I was getting my finance degree, I came to learn that I really wanted to be an entrepreneur, go out and start my own business. And I said, but you know what? Better to learn on someone else's dime initially than go out and try and figure it out on my own. So I went into what was a traditional bank management training program. They don't have as many of those around anymore, but they used to do, banks do a lot of training where they would rotate you from department to department. And then you sort of figure out in this one particular bank that I was with, after you rotated a while, they sort of had you designated in a certain area, but you might end up rotating, like I rotated through trust. We were a super large single bank holding company. And so we had a strategic planning and development area. I worked with it. We had a marketing strategies area that did product development. I worked in that area. So those were neat. But where I really thought that I'd learned the most was in the traditional credit department as a credit analyst, working with the commercial lenders and helping them underwrite loans. And my goal was to learn, how companies make money, lose money, and go out on my own. Well, what I really found out was just how hard that is. And I got used to that paycheck coming in. It was a pretty decent paycheck with good benefits. And here I sit 35 years later, but I have exercised along the way some of that entrepreneurial spirit on the side. But in a sense, I'm living through my clients with that entrepreneurial spirit. I'm working with them, helping them realize their dreams and hopefully just playing a small part of it.
Very cool. Well, and I can speak from my own experience. I really have a tremendous amount of respect for people who hang their own shingle and go out and do it themselves. Because to your point, to actually drive that top line revenue into a business, it's challenging sometimes. People don't realize how hard it is to get respect from the beginning with the name that you create yourself. And from, if you don't have a paycheck, if you don't have somebody signing a paycheck every week, you gotta wonder who's going to pay the light bill and who's going to put food on the table.
Yeah, no doubt about it. No doubt about it. So, but it has been a great run. Initially as a commercial banker, I'll tell you one of the things in the notes you sent me back is, what do you think sort of impacted my career the most? And I'll tell you the first thing was, I came out in the mid 80s, and in the mid to late 80s, they had a financial crisis in South Louisiana and Texas that was very similar to what the whole country experienced in 08. You had oil drop. It was very oil dependent. Oil dropped from $30 a barrel to $9 a barrel. And so there are a lot of companies that got in trouble, and then companies that service those companies, just the dynamics of the economics. And so I early on got thrown into the group that did the workouts. Is there a way to salvage this and get our best outcome? And generally, you wouldn't have taken someone that was 24 and 25 years old and done that. You would have had someone more experienced, but the stuff was happening so fast, they just need bodies to throw at it. And if you could tread water, you did well. So it really helped me early on learn from others' mistakes in terms of what they did, both businesses and as a banker. And because I was able to tread water and swim, I actually started handling larger and larger accounts, again, mid-20s, and I'm handling what today would be equivalent of $10 or $20 million relationships.
Right.
And trying to make sure we salvage as much as we can at them. So that was sort of early on one of the things that really helped me my career that folks saw and recognized what I did there. So I got elevated pretty quickly, just by circumstances.
It's such a cool experience. I mean, you got such a well-rounded education in banking, whether it was intended or unintended, or if it's people don't usually have that experience today, as you mentioned it, that they don't really have those traditional bank training programs anymore. I feel like even in my own experience, people, you kind of get thrown into, be good at one thing, instead of being a jack of all trades, be a master of one, essentially. But it really does. You get a less experienced person handling your accounts. You get a less knowledgeable person that's relying on teammates sometimes rather than relying on their own experience. Do you feel like the quality of professional in the banking industry that is, let's say, in their 20s now, or even in their early 30s, do you feel like that they are a less qualified person being put in those positions than what used to be 30 years ago?
Well, I think that they're basically becoming pure sales folks.
Mm-hmm.
And it used to be, you had to have the sales aspect to you, but you had to be able to understand loan documentation. You understand the legal documents. You had to understand the credit underwriting because you did a lot of the write-up. You might have had an analyst that did some basic stuff, but you had to participate. So I don't think that they are, as you say, as rounded these days usually with it. Plus, they do tend to sort of get in one lane and stay there. That
absolutely
a lot of banks silo things by industry, where it could be healthcare. It might be tax exempt, institutional type financing, car dealerships. And I was fortunate enough to work for two banks that they really looked at the person geographically being the frontline person, and they overlaid that expertise. And I did enough of those deals that I got to learn the industry because of the guy who had the expertise that was sort of co-helping me. So,
right.
So that really adds a lot of a uniqueness. Real estate today, either commercial or commercial real estate. I actually have a strong background. I've led a commercial real estate team. I've done a lot of commercial real estate in it. So it is different that you don't have as a true universal banker as you do. But, they're trying to cut costs and create efficiency. So I don't think the end product's quite as good as it used to be, but it's what's out there.
Do you think that it's cyclical? Do you think that it might return to that at some point here in the near future? Or do you think that for this foreseeable future, we're going to kind of stay in the same trends of people specializing and kind of staying in their lane?
Well, I think that they are going to continue to do that. A lot of where you do get some opportunity to do something that's more expansive with the community banks, because they don't have enough book of business to specialize a lot of times. But there are few and fewer of those community banks because of the regulations since the financial crisis are such that you've got to have so many more back office folks to stay in regulatory compliance with folks selling on the street that there are very few startup banks anymore. It is hard to make the numbers work. So with them being fewer, that's going to give you fewer opportunities for bankers to get that more diversified training.
No doubt. Well, and I think it affects that end customer as well, because then they get a different level of individual that's having the conversation with them about their financial future, about their financial situation now. I want to kind of turn it back towards farther, and just what I see in the industry is that everything is going towards more technology-based banking. Essentially, it's I had somebody who was an actual IT person for a bank tell me not too long ago that banking has become a technology industry that just happens to be in banking. Do you find that to be where you see it going as well? Do you find that banking is becoming more of just technology based and that the banking is just secondary, or do you think that there is still value in the banking aspect of it and not just in that technology overlay?
If I'm going to bet on a company like Farther, what I am truly betting on is it takes both. It takes both technology and people working together. So, in fact, our investors like Bessemer, Mass Mutual, others that have invested in our Series A that was well oversubscribed this last summer, they had been investors in, I'll throw out Betterment. That was, more of a robo, 4 or 5 years ago, they said, well, we can do all this account balancing, wealth management balancing by automated programs and whatnot. Well, what you find is once someone gets maybe around $500,000 or so, they tend to have a little more complexity and they feel more comfortable talking to a person than just having a program output something. On the other end, they've had some firms who have just tried to do roll-ups. Restaurant investment advisory firms go roll them up, cut your costs out, try and be more efficient. And those really didn't add the kind of level. So what we've done at Farther is we started out with code. We started out, the first year and a half was nothing but building the platform before we brought on a single client. And now we are bringing on clients, but our whole goal is to that financial advisor. You'll hear a number, just sort of like in commercial lending, that there's 30 to 60% of your time that you spend on just doing back office type stuff, helping the client with certain things. Back office doesn't really have anything to do with helping them with their planning or getting better results out of their portfolio. And so the Farther platform is designed to lessen that from being anywhere from 40 to 60% of their time to only being 10 to 15% of that time. And that extra time they can actually help with the planning. I tell you, it's incredible to me when I talk to someone that said who has an existing advisor, well, tell me what they're doing in terms of planning. Can you share your plan with me? What they end up sharing with me is basically something that says that they've got a certain percentage of stocks and growth equities, a certain percentage and value and so forth. And I say, that's not a plan. That's a strategy.
Sure.
The plan is, where do you want to be financially, 20, 30 years from now, retirement and whatnot? And what are the inputs and outputs getting there? And your portfolio is just one aspect, and it does have a life of its own, but there's so much more to it. And quite honestly, we see very few folks that truly have a financial plan that have quite a bit of wealth.
I would agree with you. I feel like I think people get, they hold their breath, they go underwater and they start swimming. And it's by the time they pick their head up, they don't really know, they've kind of been focused on the task at hand. They're focused on what they're doing every day. And it's a lot of the times they don't really have an idea of what that future holds for them. So I think it's excellent that you're helping them out with that. And I think on the other side of it, helping their advisors actually guide them towards where they want to be in the end. Is Farther something that an end customer, somebody like me that's opening up my 401k statement, or I'm speaking to an advisor about my retirement, am I going to know Farther by brand name, or is Farther going to sit behind the brand that I'm actually doing business with? Say, whoever my advisor works with, am I going to see their brand and then Farther is part of, what they see?
Right now, it's 98% you're going to see Farther.
Okay.
We are working toward what I talked about with the banks and white labeling to them.
Yes.
So you don't truly see, you get the Farther experience, but you're not seeing that that's who's providing a lot of that back end stuff. But no, so we've recruited just in the last year, we're probably up to about 40 financial advisors across the country. We ought to be by this time next year, 150 or more. We're primarily going to grow organically, but we can have this hyper growth with bringing these financial advisors on because of our technology. So, for instance, My partner, Daniel, worked at one of the big financial institutions and on their wealth platform, they're getting wet signatures. It takes them 2 weeks to get an account open. It takes us literally 5 minutes to get an account open. So there's just rebalancing. We have rebalancing tools so that the client, that'll do it automatically. The client doesn't have to do that. We have tools where we can automatically hook up our planning software to folks' different accounts at other institutions outside of Farther, and the data feeds in automatically so that their plan is always updated. We generally view it with them once a quarter to see how things are going. And when we meet with them, we're really not talking about what we do to get into portfolio performance, but we're more talking about, is the income there, is the balances there that you need to accomplish your long-term goal of whatever that looks like in retirement, and the big purchases you might do along the way of nice boats, vacation homes, those kind of things. So
if somebody's interested in doing business with you guys, where can they find you? If they listen to this interview and they say, you know what, I'm interested in looking more into Farther, where can they find you guys? Do they go online, or are there offices in their communities?
Easiest way to find someone is to go online, farther.com, and there's a place where you can go in and you can actually look at all of our advisors and see maybe who you feel comfortable working with and reaching out. I will tell you that our advisors, Farther really gives advisors a way to go to market in the way that they want to go to market. So while I like to work with business owners and families, there might be other folks who like to work with the C-suite of public companies or what. So, finding that person that's a good fit for you. We've got that information for the different advisors. We're all across the country, quite honestly. I still meet a lot of my clients, usually early on when I first meet them. It's face-to-face, but 90% of my meetings are virtual these days, even if they're in the same city. So it's more about finding the right fit than it is, can you go down to the corner bank, the bank's branch and meet someone.
No doubt. And we'll make sure that your information is listed with this interview as well, because that's probably the easiest way that somebody can get in touch with Farther is find Nelson Bradshaw.
Yeah.
I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about some of the stuff that you do personally. I know that you're involved with a lot of different causes. You're very engaged in your community, and I'd love to hear about some of the causes that you support. And number one, just because it's coming up soon, is the Gator Bowl here in Jacksonville. Tell us a little bit about that. How'd you get involved with them?
Well, I'd like to say that I just reached out and found it interesting, but the reality is when the bank moved me over here to run this market 14 years ago, we have an advisory board, and 4 of those advisory board members have been prior Gator Bowl chairmen. So they very quickly got me involved in their favorite thing. But as it turned out, it became one of my favorite things to be involved in. We say the organization does a lot of charity, especially somewhat sports leadership related in the lower socioeconomic markets and areas with it. So we really say that the game is a celebration of the work that the Gator Bowl does all year long from a philanthropy standpoint. And, we've been doing it for 76 years. So we're one of the oldest bowl games out there. And we generally, today, it's moved over the years. We used to have SEC, Big Ten, ACC that we pulled from. Today, we pull from the SEC and usually someone in that 5th or 6th within the SEC ranking. And then out of the ACC can be sort of their number 4th or 5th. Out of that. And so this year, our SEC team is University of South Carolina, who just had 2 great wins with top 25 teams at the end of the year. And they're playing Notre Dame, who's always a perennial favorite nationwide. and it's a sellout already. We haven't had a sellout since right after I first got here. Bobby Bowden's last game as the coach at FSU was against Virginia Tech, and we had a sellout then. So the city's really excited about it.
That's excellent. Congratulations. I'm sure the hospitality industry is going to be buying you drinks and buying you dinner over the next couple of months.
yeah, it is. And unfortunately, you're going to have to. It's a high price to get a bed right now in those days, but it'll be worth it. So, but no, we do that, and I try and have my involvement sort of moved around with different areas. I've been on the foundation board for Hubbard House, which works with abused, primarily women, and their children, and help them leave that abuser and get on their feet. So that's important. The arts, I think, are important. On the board at Florida Theater, which actually is a real gem in this community. For theaters that hold under 2,000 people, we're in the top 25 in the country in terms of venues. And then here tomorrow, a mental health, and that really focuses. We were seeing this before even COVID, but the mental stress, and that folks contemplating suicide. The challenge was it takes over 30 days to get an appointment with a counselor, and if you're in that kind of darkness, you don't have 30 days. And so we've made it where you can get with someone in 24, 48 hours at no cost, and we'll support those efforts for a year to do that. So,
do you sleep at all, Nelson? It sounds like you got an incredibly busy dance card.
Well, I do. Well, my kids are grown now, so I guess instead of being at soccer fields on weekends or at cheerleader practice or whatever, that this is where I sort of spend my extra time outside of playing a little bit of golf and fishing a little bit.
That's wonderful. Well, we certainly appreciate you being on the show today. If people want to learn more about you, or if they've really enjoyed this and they'd like to get in touch with you and do business with you, where can they find you?
Nelson at farther.com is easy to get a hold of me there. And then if you want to learn more about what I'm sort of doing out there, there's actually, JB Jacksonville Business Journal and others have, several articles on things I've been involved in. I did mention I'm pretty heavily involved in the commercial real estate industry, primarily through an national organization called NAIOP to do that. So, and especially if you're in town, it's easy to find me. I'm at a lot of events and running into folks like Jesse in business development area.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for helping our audience make sense of it all. We'll catch you soon.
Thank you, Jess. Yeah, it's a real pleasure. Appreciate what you're doing, trying to help get folks know about what's going on in Jacksonville, because there's a lot of good stuff happening here.
You're not kidding. Jacksonville does have a lot going on right now. Well, that's going to wrap us up for this week. I want to thank Nelson Bradshaw for joining us, and we hope to have him back on the show soon. If you would like to join us, you can find us at jessesteaks.com, where you can connect with us. You can also book a time for us to speak. For Making Sense of It All, I'm Jesse Steaks, and we'll catch you guys next time.